Welcome back to Carman Conversations, and we are deep into season 5 with everything car related and talking around finance and all aspects of finance. And this time we're joined by Taylor to talk about first time borrowers, so borrowing for the first time and all things associated with it. Welcome, Taylor.
Thank you, Luke. I'm excited for this one because I am the first time
You
financing,
are, yep.
and there's plenty to learn, I'm sure. So I guess to kick things off, I want to know, what do we need to have prepared for finance?
Good question, because this is the big one. This is and often I'm so glad that we're doing what we do here to allow people to get a better understanding, because it's hard enough and daunting enough to come and buy a brand new car for the first time. We try and take that away and be enjoyable, but then you got the other hurdle, which is your first time borrower. And what do I do? Am I eligible? Do I apply? Do I own enough money? What do I do? So it is really, really simple for your first time borrower. You don't need too much, actually. Just some identification, and that's all we really need. So that first conversation really looks like the car, the borrow amount, looking at a quoting of what it's going to, if it's going to suit for your weekly budget. Talk about the things that you don't think about all the time: how much rent you pay, or what are your mortgage, how much you actually bank in surplus per week, and what sort of lifestyle do you live, outside of that. We talk about your insurance payments. We talk about making sure that you've got enough for fuel money and your servicing to allow for that in your first 12 months. So these are the real basics we need. What do you need? Nothing. Just an open mind to getting the best advice and the most responsible advice. And then post that, the only thing we really need is identification and some pay slips to get some proof of income. Find out about information about how long you've been in your job for stability, whatever other loans there is outstanding, and a bit of an idea of what your expenses are per week. Just that in your mind. But these things aren't necessary. It can be a general conversation first up, and then we give you a list of things that we might need to go through post that. Very, very simple. Very simple. And a good alignment sometimes to have a look and go, I haven't really thought about that for a while.
Yeah, and I think I'm currently going through this, as I said, and I guess a limiting belief of mine was I'm going to need X amount in the bank. Just people maybe think that they can't afford it, so they just don't even look into it.
It's funny, a lot of people think, oh no, that's going to be too dear, I don't have enough money. There's been people that have saved, say it's a 30 grand borrow, they've saved the 30 grand to make sure they've got enough money to cover just in case something happens to the loan. Like, bless them. Yeah. Because it's their lack of knowledge when it comes around the finance of what they need, how much it's going to be, can I afford it, and all the rest of it. Not so the case. You don't need to have money in the bank account. You don't need to have a certain amount saved, and you might be thinking, am I able, can I actually afford the amount of money, or can I actually even get the loan? These are all things we'll be able to tell you straight up, and a lot of it is just common sense based around the amount of the car, what the budget might be, and a lot of those other things that we talked about is where people might think, okay, well, how do I go about it? Can I afford it? Have I got enough money? Do I need to save up more money? No, not at all. And it's not a case where you think, I need to have a certain portion, or I need a 30% deposit, or whatever it might be. Always my suggestion, my bit of advice personal, is always leave enough money in the bank for a rainy day. But the rest of it, with the money being so cheap and such great options when it comes to borrow as much as you possibly can, rather than taking your own hard-earned, and borrow at a really good rate. It's something that's going to be tailored to suit. So, and we'll give you all that advice up front. But no, there's no need to have a certain amount allocated for the first 12 months or have enough covered for the first 3 years or anything like that. No, not at all.
So, no deposit needed, is that what you're saying?
No deposit needed. It's not a case you've paid your deposit on the car. Generally, that's enough. It might be a case where, you might be wanting to go to a shorter term, and it might be handy to put a $5,000 deposit in because it might bring your payments down. It might be a case where you say, look, it has to be $100 a week. Got to be $100 a week, and I'm not negotiable on $100 a week, and that might mean you put in $2,000 or $3,000 deposit, to get you down to that figure, which will just lessen the actual borrow amount. So for a general loan, there's no need to put a deposit up front.
Sounds like there's plenty of options with it, which is great. And as we've mentioned before in some earlier episodes, it's obviously a daunting topic for a lot of people, especially first timers. I guess, how do you guys simplify the process? Because it can be quite complicated, I guess, for a first timer.
It can. For a first timer, it's complicated and there's a lot to take in, and a bit overwhelming. But the thing is, we just want to make that as simple as possible for you to borrow the car and to borrow that amount of money, but do it in a real responsible way, in a way that you're confident, knowing that you're not going to be living stretched week to week. So to simplify it, we'll basically say it's a 20 grand car that you're looking to borrow, right? You need to borrow that amount of money. This is how much it's going to be per week. Break it down to see if it's affordable for one. It might be that you say, look, I'd be more comfortable if it was more $80 a week now that you would have to allow for fuel and rego and servicing and all these things I didn't think about. How do I make it more $75 or $80 a week? Does that mean that I need to put in a deposit, or does that mean I need to be looking at a 15 grand car? Not at all. That might be a case where we say, no, we change that from a 5-year term to a 6-year term or a 7-year term, which will give you an extra 12 or 24 months to make those payments back. So then all of a sudden $100 a week might come back to $80 a week or $75 a week. It gives you that little bit of room to cover everything else. It's just being upfront. So I guess for those first timers, it'd be really good to have just a conversation around this to start with, saying, hey, I'm looking at a Mazda 2. Can I just have just a high level conversation around finance, what it all means, if I can afford it? And the other part of that we do, Taylor, is something different. And this is from experience and knowing this is what we want. You might come in here in your head thinking, oh, no, I'll be right to borrow 20 grand or 30 grand, or I might go to my bank, or I've got enough money in the bank account. And you may not have even thought about finance or had that conversation. We'll actually introduce you on day one when you first come in to look at the car. We'll introduce you to a business manager to have that conversation. And that's just not, saying that you will need the finance. That's wanting to give you an option. So you've ticked that off and gone, okay, well, that's really good to know that, because I thought that I couldn't do that, or I didn't think it was going to be that cheap, or I didn't think it was that affordable. So we always have that conversation, and 100% of the time we'll give you a quote. And we'll give you a quote over, whether it be a guaranteed future value quote, or whether it be a quote over a 7-year term, or it might be a quote to suit just on the car to say, here's a bit of an idea over a 5-year term to start with. So these are the things that we'll do up front. So don't panic about that, and don't think that, well, I need to go and get my money sorted out up front first, or I might not be able to afford it. Just have the conversation with us, Also, we have online facility now where it'll give you a bit of a gauge off our website that you can see what a 30 grand borrow looks like, or a 40 grand borrow, or 50 grand borrow. But after 30 odd years experience in this, and having kids that have gone through it with first time borrow, that conversation that you're going to have with the business manager just about what that finance term looks like, you can't put a value on that. That is probably the best advice I could give around it. Have that conversation, you'll learn so much from it.
And I think going back to that daunting point, you walk into a dealership and sort of feel like maybe you're going to get locked in straight away and you're going to have to pay X amount, that you don't have any breathing room. So I think it's a great point just to reiterate that people are here to just answer the questions early days.
We're probably the complete opposite. We give out all this information. We want you to know it all. We want you to have every option available to you, and knowing for safeguarding your investment what's the best thing to do. And what's the best option, what's the most responsible option, what are the smarter options, and then also advice around how can I benefit. It might come down to business sense of financing through a business. There's a whole different array of things that we can do to assist you make the right decision, and that's that conversation we have up front.
I guess getting more into the nitty-gritty of it, as a first-timer, I know just from conversations with you already that it's not a one-size-fits-all for everyone. I guess, what advice would you give to people? What is the best loan term for a first-timer? Is there a golden number?
No, there's no silver bullet on the best loan term or how to go about it or the right structure. It'll be an individual thing. And for a first-timer, you might be in a position where you might be ready to turn over every 2 or 3 years or 2.5 years. You might be in a position where you think, okay, well, I'm part-time, but I'm going to get more hours, so I might be a permanent part-time, but in 6 months I'm going to get extra hours, and then 12 months' time I'm going to be full-time. So we might be able to then say, okay, well, the best term for you might be 5 years, or it might be a 7-year term. And people might say, oh, hang on, my mum said that she's got that loan with a residual or a balloon payment. What's that all about? We can explain the pros and cons with that. And so, what that would mean, it's lesser repayments, but you still need to pay that back in 5 years' time. Over a 7-year term, the payment's going to be the same, but you're not going to have to worry about any payments. You loan the car at the end. So there's a lot of things that people want to hear for their own confidence, and we want to put them in the right position to make the right educated decision.
Yeah, I guess the scary thing, maybe a misconception about financing, is a lot of people think you're signing the dotted line, you're locked in, and that's that. And if you've made a bad decision initially, that maybe you're locked in forever. No,
definitely not. Yeah. Definitely not. So you're not locked in. And again, that's the big chance. If you're going to do a loan online, an application online, you might be in that position where you're locked into a term, and you might want to break that after 2 or 3 years. And, there's this massive breakout fee and penalty costs. This is why I'd suggest to go away from that and get the advice up front. of the financier with the right reputation, getting you the right loan and getting the right loan that'll suit you, so you're not going to be in that position. Because I've handled it way too many times where people ring me and say, look, I'm currently in this loan with these people and I'm paying this amount of interest and I've got this breakout fee which is going to cost me $1 million. Like, you should have never been in that position, and the only reason you're in that position is lack of knowledge from the front and lack of transparency from the borrower, and not responsible lending. You know, we're very big advocates of responsible lending and putting you in the right position that's going to suit you and give you the best term that you're going to be in a really comfortable position where you'll be able to repurchase again.
I guess the main thing, I guess that's probably scary about being locked in, is just that, you know, you could, God forbid, lose your job, you could be injured. There's a lot of things that can happen outside factors.
Yep, correct.
And if you can't pay your loan, it's very scary thought.
And that's where we've got all these things covered too when it comes to loan protection. So there's the bits there where if you're unemployed, if you lose your job, if you become injured, we give you that advice up front, and we offer solutions for that loan protection to help you through that period. And if you get on missed payments, or if you know there's going to be a delay, or that you are injured, what can we do? So we've got all that advice we give you at the time of sign up, or even at the time of quoting, so you're really comfortable. Because again, you're right, these aren't things you're thinking of. I'm coming in here, I'm buying a brand new BT50. I'm not thinking about getting injured or being unemployed in 2 years' time. I'm thinking about BT50 and what accessories I'm going to put on it, you know, and driving it, where my first trip's going to be. That's our job. Our job is to be very responsible and upfront, especially for first timers, to give them a really, really basic overview and simplify what can be a daunting experience into something that's a really good experience.
Yeah, it's super reassuring for someone like me who's just going into this for the first time now. Yep. So, yeah, thank you, Luke. It's really reassuring. I was already reassured before, but now I'm extra reassured.
My absolute pleasure.
Thanks.
Well, that was a really interesting episode around first-timers. And I guess first-timer, there's going to be a long time ahead with giving different options, and it won't be the first or the last car. But there's sometimes where you think, I just need that bit more advice and that little bit more, I suppose, reassurance around doing the right things. So if you'd like to talk to one of our team in more detail, or just get a bit more to know around the financing options, visit the links in the description below.